Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. In a world filled with endless opportunities, why would two men who have built 13 multi-million-dollar businesses altruistically invest 5 hours per day to teach you the best practice business systems and moves that you can use? Because they believe in you, and they have a lot of time on their hands. They started from the bottom, now they're here. It's the Thrive Time Show, starring the former U.S. Small Business Administration's Entrepreneur of the Year, Clay Clark, and the entrepreneur trapped inside an optometrist's body, Dr. Robert Zillner. Two men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses.
We started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, now we're here.
Mr. Clyde started from the bottom, and now we're at the top, teaching you the systems to get what we got. Colton Dixon's on the hooks, I break down the books. Z's bringing some wisdom and the good looks. As the father of 5, that's why I'm alive. So if you see my wife and kids, please tell them hi. It's the CNC up on your radio, and now 3, 2, 1, here we go.
We started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here.
Folks, on today's show, we're joined by a germaphobe by the name of Matt Klein. Matt Klein is with an organization called OxyFresh, oxifresh.com. He's obsessive about making sure your carpets are clean. He's the franchise brand developer. He's so afraid or so concerned about germs, he actually chooses to do today's broadcast from about 6 feet away from the camera, maybe even 15 feet away from the camera. Matt Klein, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Doing awesome. Thanks for noticing my unique setup at the moment.
How far are you away from the camera?
4 feet, 5 feet.
Okay, because it feels like maybe you're 10 feet away, but I like the further you are away, it gives us a better perspective of what you're doing today at the OxyFresh headquarters. And I wanted to focus on one brief topic today while I have you, kind of a shorter interview today, but I just wanted to focus on one thing, the calendar. Yeah. And I didn't talk about it offline, so this is kind of fun, but I wanted to talk about the calendar. And what I have found is that successful people have a calendar, and people that are not successful don't have a calendar. So for anybody who goes to oxyfresh.com and they buy a franchise from you, there's 500 locations. I can tell you that the successful franchisees, they all know what they're going to do today. Why? Because they have a calendar and a to-do list. They organize their day and then they go do it. And the people that are not successful, not that there's any OxyFreshes that are not successful, but people in general who are not successful, they don't have a calendar and they don't have a to-do list and they don't know what they're going to do today. Talk to me about the importance of having a calendar and a to-do list.
Yeah, so I have my personal calendar that everything goes on, personally and my business. It tells me where I can be so I don't overlap. It's very important for me to be on calls when they're scheduled because other calls are coming up behind that. It's also very important. Same way I run my franchise, right? Like a customer thinks we're going to be there at 9. We got to be there at 9 so that I can actually manage a schedule more appropriately. That's also why we don't do windows of time. We do exact times for our franchise. But yeah, I mean, if you can't schedule anything, I don't know how you're going to be able to stay organized. If you are a busy person, if you're a successful person, you're going to have multiple meetings and/or things you'll have to do in a day. And if you don't put those on your schedule, I don't know how you can possibly be organized enough to be successful. You'll just drop the ball on so many things.
John Maxwell, the best-selling author, we've had him on our show before, and we're going to feature him on part 2 of today's show. He wrote 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and he has said in many ways, in many different ways, he said, show me a man's calendar, and I'll tell you whether he'll be successful or not. He said, just show me your calendar. You know, this is one of the most best-selling authors in the history of the world for leadership. And he's just saying, hey, if you want me to tell you if you're going to be successful, let me just look at your calendar. Can you talk about that, though? Because, I mean, when you sit down with somebody who's really struggling and you help coach them into success, that's one thing you do with OxyFresh. If somebody's struggling, you guys coach them into success. You help mentor people that want to be mentored. And a lot of times it comes down to looking at their schedule and where they're spending their time. Talk about that.
Yeah, because there's going to be gaps in your schedule, and those gaps could be filled with very productive meetings potentially. They could be filled with things that you could do just to get your business off the ground better, right? If you have, let's say you start your day and you have 3 hours worth of things that you need to do, right? And that's totally fine. That means you're going to have at least 4 hours or so where you're doing nothing, which means that's going to be time you're going to be spending on social media doing nothing. That's going to be time you're just raiding your own fridge doing nothing. That's going to be wasted with non-productive tasks that are not going to allow you to be successful, right? And so like if you have big gaps of windows in your day where you don't have anything to do, fill them with things that are going to make you better, either personally, like going to the gym, or actually business-wise, like calling on potential customers, or spending time with your employees and making sure you understand the gaps in their learning so you can train them how to be better employees for you, right? Large amounts of time in your schedule that are filled with nothing will become nothing.
This is so important for people to grasp, to marinate on, to think about. I'm going to pull up my calendar real quick so people can throw rocks at my calendar. So let me pull up my calendar, working my way over here to Google, working my way, navigating around here, clicking on feeling the flow, working it, clicking the calendar. Calendar's pulling up. Here we go. 1 second, folks. Here we go. There it is. Okay. So my calendar, this is my calendar. And this is what I'm doing today. And this is what I'm doing right now. This is what I'm going to do today. This is my calendar. This is my schedule for tomorrow. This is my schedule for the next day. Matt, I have decided what's on my calendar, which would then imply that I have to say no to things that are not on my calendar. Can you talk about that? Because that's why I won't mention what I'm talking about, but off air, I was talking to you about an event coming up in June. It's February. And the reason why I'm asking you about something potentially 4 months in advance is because I know you have a busy schedule. And I find that the more successful you are, the more intentional you have to be to say no to grow. Talk about that a little bit. Why do you have to say no to grow?
Yeah, because at some point you have to decide what's important for you, right? And those important things, like if it's important to you to take 3-hour lunches, then that's fine, right? If you want to do that. But you are going to waste potential time that you could spend on growing your business, right? For me, it's all about growing the business. And I have a lot of people I talk to about just becoming a business owner. And so if you're not intentional about your schedule, it goes the same thing I just said. I mean, if you aren't intentional about filling the gaps of your schedule, if you aren't intentional about actually being productive in a 30-minute time slot or an hour-long time slot, it will be filled with nothing. It'll be a void that doesn't help you grow. I mean, there's, you should be, as a person that's busy, you should be excited about a 15-minute window where you can just like take a minute, right? If you're not excited, and it's because you're actually productive. Like when you get done, like there's physical, like wearing out physically, but at the end of my day, I'm truly like excited that I'm a little bit exhausted because that's a productive day. And I didn't do anything physically, but I had a lot of calls. We got a lot of contracts done. I've got a lot of reviews on my business by motivating my employees, right? All of those things have to be scripted into my day or it will be lost completely. Every minute that's not on my schedule is a thing that I am going to just be like in la la land. Yep. I might like get some things done, but it's not going to be productive because I don't really have a time frame associated to it. Like if I'm trying to get an email finished and it's a really important email, it's going to take me a little bit. I should put that in my schedule because if I don't, that email might take me 3 days to complete.
Now, Matt, I'm going to ask this question here. I'm going to pull this up on the screen so you can look at this for a second. Let me pull it up here. This is just sort of something. Imagine that you at your physical peak, okay? How tall were you you played Division I basketball. How tall were you at the physical peak of basketball?
5'10", 5'11" with shoes on.
How much were you weighing with the most jacked you've ever been? The most jacked?
200.
200. So Tim Tebow here, he's 6'3". How much do you think he weighed, do you think? I mean, when he was playing for the Broncos, what do you think he weighed at that time? What do you think?
About probably 50.
250? Do you feel like if you had to, I mean, if it was like a cage match, like a cage fight kind of a thing, and you're in the ring, could you put him in a kung fu grip and take him, you think, or no?
No, I do not.
I have a point for this.
Anybody ever wants to have that interaction with Tim Tebow?
I'm asking this question because you're in Denver. That's where Tim Tebow had that legendary season, obviously playing for the Broncos. And I think one thing that you're great at, and I hope everybody out there was learning something from this, you're a very pragmatic guy. I love talking to you offline and online because you're just not going to get in a fight you can't win. There's just something about you that understands, and it's even when the way you converse with people, you're just not going to get into a conversation that's not, I watch you do it. It's you're efficient with the time. And I think there's somebody out there that says, you know, I don't want to buy an OxyFresh franchise. I don't want to do that. I want to take over the world, and I want to start an app and take over the world. And you're like, yeah, bro, but your last 2 apps didn't work and you didn't take over the world. And now you're 40 years old and you're living with your mom. And they go, yeah, but I want to take over the world. I don't have time for something like OxyFresh. I mean, I don't have time to buy a business that's only 50 grand-ish that I can run myself that creates time freedom and financial freedom. I got to take over the world. You know, I see a lot of that. People that want to take over the world and open a chain of coffee shops, bruh, because they don't have time to deal with a realistic franchise. Can you talk about that real quick? Because I do think that buying an OxyFresh, if we were playing baseball, it's a lot like hitting a single. It's a realistic thing. You can get on base. It allows you to earn some money. If we're playing basketball, I think an OxyFresh is a lot like a layup. It's doable. You can do it. You get on the board. Let me get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, there are people out there that have the mental fortitude and kind of stomach to just put everything, like, doesn't matter, failure, no matter what, like, I'm going to shoot for the stars. That's a special person, right? I think that's fine. For most people, they need to have a very pragmatic way of getting from one step to another and then getting to the next step. And it's got to be in a scenario where you're not putting your entire family at risk. Right, you're in a scenario where you have very task-driven things that will help your business grow, and that's what we do at OxyFresh. Like, we're not here to say you are going to become the best company ever made in America. We're saying for you and who you are, with the time commitments that you have, here is a realistic expectation of what you can do if you do these things every single day, right? And that might be getting 2 or 3 Google reviews in a day. That could be having a motivational conversation with your employee. That could be taking an hour out of your day and calling potential customers like property managers, building managers, right? Most people fail in small business because they have no idea what to do with their time, right? So they do all sorts of things. I've had people like call me and say, you know, I spent all week handing out door hangers. I'm like, what do you mean all week? They're like, all week. I'm like, how many reviews did you get? They go, what do you mean? I go, we are doing things backwards at the moment, right? And so, yeah, for us, we just want to make sure that the owners of these businesses that have never been owners of anything before understand very tangible tasks that they can complete without changing their entire life dynamic, right? It's got to be doable. If you tell someone they've got to get on a plane every single day and drive to a new state and meet new people and get reviews, like, that's not possible, right? But if you can say, this is what you need to do, 2 or 3 reviews, talk to some people, have a conversation with your employees, right? You can actually run a successful business that, like you said, will hit a single today, and then you'll be on second base tomorrow, and then on third the next day, and by the end of the week, you might be able to get through the finish line.
Brother, I really do appreciate you carving out time for us. And should you and Tim Tebow be in the same room in the not so distant future, I will not suggest that a cage fight ensues, but outside of Tim Tebow, I think you can hold your own with most people. So keep doing whatever you're doing there in Colorado, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks.
Take care. Bye.
What is the biggest mind shift that you had going from running a Tip Top Canine to franchising? So what was the big switch you had to do to make that, you know, switch over to where you're now running it, doing it every day, but now trying to teach others to do it?
Well, so doing my craft is really easy for me, right? I've been doing it for a long time, like 11 years or so now, maybe 12. So
very crafty.
Yeah. So doing my actual job is a lot easier than sitting down and literally stepping out every single little thing I'm doing and systemizing every single little thing. Like, my wife or Clay would be like, hey, you need to make the system. And I'd be like, oh, I want to train this dog. Oh, this one's aggressive. I want to train this one. This one's cool, or whatever.
So the systems weren't sexy?
No, not really. And then also, when we first started, Clay just helping me with the consistency of ads, the consistency of the group interview, he's like a super consistent man. So just being consistent in every single little thing and systemizing every single little thing, even if it was boring, that was probably the hardest part.
The Thrive Time Show 2-day interactive business workshops are the highest and most reviewed business workshops on the planet.
You can learn the proven 13-point business systems that Dr. Zellner and I have used over and over to start and grow successful companies. I mean, we get into the specific steps on what you need to do to optimize your website. We're going to teach you how to fix your conversion rate. We're going to teach you how to do a social media marketing campaign that works. How do you raise capital? How do you get a small business loan? We teach you everything you need to know here during a 2-day, 15-hour workshop. It's all here for you. You work every day in your business, but for 2 days you can escape and work on your business and build these proven systems so now you can have a successful company that will produce both the time freedom and the financial freedom that you deserve. You're going to leave energized, motivated, but you're also going to leave empowered. The reason why I've built these workshops is because as an entrepreneur, I always wish that I had this. And because there wasn't anything like this, I would go to these motivational seminars, no money down, real estate, Ponzi scheme, get motivated seminars, and they would never teach me anything. It was like you went there and you paid for the big chocolate Easter bunny, but inside of it, it was a hollow nothingness. And I wanted the knowledge, and they're like, oh, but we'll teach you the knowledge after our next workshop. And the great thing is we have nothing to upsell. At every workshop, we teach you what you need to know. There's no one in the back of the room trying to sell you some next big get-rich-quick, walk-on-hot-coals product. It's literally, we teach you the brass tacks, the specific stuff that you need to know to learn how to start and grow a business. And I encourage you to not believe what I'm saying, and I want you to Google the Z66 auto auction. I want you to Google elephant in the room. Look at Robert Zellner and Associates. Look them up and say, are they successful because they're geniuses, or are they successful because they have a proven system? When you do that research, you will discover that the same systems that we use in our own business can be used in your business. Come to Tulsa, book a ticket, and I guarantee you it's going to be the best business workshop ever, and we'll even give you your money back if you don't love it. We've built this facility for you, and we're excited to see you.
All right. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to bring up my good friend Ryan Wimpy, and his dog Odin. This dog has the ability to eat me, so I'm sort of concerned. I'll pass the mic to you, and Odin, you can have your own mic if you want, whatever you want, Odin. Okay, I'm a little bit afraid of Odin.
Hi, I'm Ryan Wimpy.
And I'm Rachel Wimpy, and the name of our business is Tip Top Canine.
Our business is a dog training business. We help people with behavioral issues and teach their dog how to listen. When I was learning to become a dog trainer, we didn't learn anything about internet marketing or advertising or anything at all. Just dog training. And that's what's so great about working with Clay and his team, because they do it all for us.
So that we can focus on our passion, and that's training dogs. Clay and his team here, they're so enthusiastic. Their energy is off the charts. Never a dull moment here at Thrive.
We've been working with Clay and his team for the last 5 months, 2 of which have been our biggest months ever. 1, our biggest gross by 35%. Clay's helped us make anything from brochures to stickers, new business cards, new logos, scripts for phones, script for email, script for text message, scripting for everything.
How I would describe the weekly meetings with Clay and his team are awesome. They're so effective. It's worth every minute. Things get done. We'll ask for things like different flyers, and they're done before our hour is up. So it's just awesome, extremely effective.
If you don't use Clay and his team, you're probably going to be pulling your hair out, or you're going to spend half of your time trying to figure out the online marketing game and producing your own flyers and marketing materials, print materials, all the stuff like that. You're really losing a lot as far as lost productivity and lost time. Not having a professional do it, it has a real sense of urgency and that actually knows what they're doing when you already have something that's your core focus that you already know how to do.
You would also be missing out with all the time and financial freedom that you would have working with Clay and his team.
We would recommend Clay and his team to other business owners because they need to be working on their business, not just trying to figure out the online game, which is complex and changing daily. So no one has a marketing team too. Most people don't. They can't afford one, and their local web guy or a local person that they know probably can't do everything that a whole team and a whole floor of people can do in hours and not just weeks or months. There's a definite sense of urgency with Clay and his team. I used to have to ride other web people, really ride them to get stuff done, and stuff is done so fast here, and there's a real sense of urgency to get it done.
Hey, I'm Ryan Wimpy. I'm originally from Tulsa, born and raised here. I've definitely learned a lot about life design and making sure the business serves you. The linear workflow for us and getting everything out on paper and documented is really important. Like we have workflows that are kind of all over the place. So having linear workflow and seeing that mapped out on multiple different boards is pretty awesome. That's really helpful for me. The atmosphere here is awesome. I definitely just stared at the walls, figuring out how to make my facility look like this place. This place rocks. It's invigorating. The walls are super, it's just very cool. The atmosphere is cool. The people are nice. It's a pretty cool place to be. Very good learning atmosphere. I literally want to model it and steal everything that's here at this facility and basically create it just on our business side. Clay is hilarious. I literally laughed so hard that I started having tears yesterday. And we've been learning a lot, which, you know, we've been sitting here, we've been learning a lot, and so the humor definitely helps. It breaks it up. But the content is awesome, off the charts, and it's very interactive. You can raise your hand. It's not like you're just listening to the professor speak, you know. The wizard teaches, but the wizard interacts and he takes questions, so that's awesome. If you're not attending the conference, you're missing about 3/4 to half of your life. You're definitely, it's probably worth a couple $1,000s. So you're missing the thought process of someone that's already started like 9 profitable businesses. So not only is it a lot of good information, but just getting in the thought process of Clay Clark or Dr. Zellner or any of the other coaches, getting in their thought process of how they're starting all these businesses, to me, just that is priceless. That's money. Well, we're definitely not getting upsold here. My wife and I have attended conferences where where it was great information and then they upsold us like half the conference, and I don't want to like bang my head into a wall, and she's like banging her head into the chair in front of her. Like, it's good information, but we're like, oh my gosh, I want to strangle you. Shut up and go with the presentation that we paid for. And that's not here. There's no upsells or anything, so that's awesome. I hate that. It makes me angry. So glad that's not happening. So the cost of this conference is quite a bit cheaper than business college. I went to a small private liberal arts college and got a degree in business. And I didn't learn anything like they're teaching here. I didn't learn linear workflows. I learned stuff that I'm not using, and I haven't been using for the last 9 years. So what they're teaching here is actually way better than what I got at business school. And I went what was actually ranked as a very good business school. I would definitely recommend that people would check out the Thrive 15 conference. The information that you're going to get is just very, very beneficial, and the mindset that you're going to get, that you're going to leave with, is just absolutely worth the price of a little bit of money and a few days worth of your time.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. In a world filled with endless opportunities, why would 2 men who have built 13 multi-million-dollar businesses altruistically invest 5 hours per day to teach you the best practice business systems and moves that you can use? Because they believe in you, and they have a lot of time on their hands. They started from the bottom, now they're here. It's the Thrive Time Show, starring the former U.S. Small Business Administration's Entrepreneur of the Year, Clay Clark, and the entrepreneur trapped inside an optometrist's body, Dr. Robert Zellner. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses.
We started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, now we're here.
Mr. Clark started from the bottom, now we're at the top, teaching you the systems to get what we got. Colton Dixon's on the hooks, I break down the books. Z's bringing some wisdom and the good looks. As the father of 5, that's why I'm alive. So if you see my wife and kids, please tell them hi. It's the CNC up on your radio, and now 3, 2, 1, here we go.
We started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, now we're here.
I'm Rachel with Tip Top Canine, and we just want to give a huge thank you to Clay and Vanessa Clark.
Hey guys, I'm Ryan with Tip Top Canine. Just want to say a big thank you to Thrive 15. Thank you to Make Your Life Epic. We love you guys, we appreciate you, and really just appreciate how far you've taken us.
This is our old house, right? This is where we used to live a few years ago. This is our old neighborhood. See? It's nice, right? So this is my old van and our old school marketing, and this is our old team. And by team, I mean it's me and another guy.
This is our new house with our new neighborhood. This is our new van with our new marketing, and this is our new team. We went from 4 to 14, and I took this beautiful photo. We worked with several different business coaches in the past, and they were all about helping Ryan sell better and just teaching sales, which is awesome, but Ryan is a really great salesman. So we didn't need that. We needed somebody to help us get everything that was in his head out into systems, into manuals and scripts, and actually build a team. So now that we have systems in place, we've gone from 1 to 10 locations in only a year.
In October 2016, we grossed 13 grand for the whole month. Right now it's 2018, the month of October. It's only the 22nd. We've already grossed a little over 50 grand for the whole month, and we still have time to go. We're just thankful for you, thankful for Thrive and your mentorship, and we're really thankful that you guys have helped us to grow a business that we run now instead of the business running us. Just thank you times 1,000.
Whoa! Excuse me, Thrive Nation. I have to take this call real quick. Hello, and thank you for calling Clay Clark's Podcast and Taxidermy. If you'll kill it, we will make it look great for a very long time. How can I help you?
Hey, Clay, John Maxwell, how are you doing today?
Great. I didn't recognize the number, and so I thought you might have been calling about my other side hustle there.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
3, 2, 1, here we go!
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here.
Yes, and yes. Thrive Nation, on today's show, we introduce you once again to Mr. John Maxwell. And John, we have a live studio audience in the background who is fairly excited for you to be on the show. That's our office staff here. Hopefully you can hear them on your end.
Oh, I can hear them. Wow, they're wound up. They're ready to go, aren't they?
Absolutely. They're excited for me to mute my mic and to just let you talk, my friend. Again, we're so excited to have you on the show. Since we've talked to you last, you've been working on a new book here. Can you tell us about the new book?
Well, I'd be glad to. Thanks, first of all. You do just such a great job on Thrive Time, and so thanks for having me. This is an interesting. I've written a lot of books, but this one, the creation of this book was very interesting in how it happened. 25 years ago, about 28 years ago, I wrote a book called Developing the Leader Within You. And then afterwards, I wrote a book called Developing the Leaders Around You. And my publisher, HarperCollins, came to me and they said, John, we'd like you to, if you would, I mean, it's 25 years old, we'd like you to revise Developing the Leaders Around You. And I said, oh, I'd be glad to. So I went back into the book, and I hadn't, of course, looked at it for a long time, and I'd written it 25 years ago. So I went into the book, and I thought, oh my gosh, this isn't very good. I mean, wow, I've learned so much more than what I mean. It's always disappointing to read a book that's not very good, but it's extremely disappointing when it's your book. It's kind of like, right. Wow, I'm the author,
right?
And I had just developed and grown so much in the 25 years. So when I started revising chapter 1, there wasn't one thing in the original book that I used in this one. And I got to the second chapter, there was a story and a quote I used in that one. The third chapter, again, nothing. And by the fourth chapter, I thought, I'm not revising a book here. I'm writing a new book. And so this is how really the Leader's Greatest Return really evolved. It was going to be a revised Developing the Leader Around You, like a 2.0. And I've learned so much and I've grown so much. And in developing leaders, when I wrote that 25 years ago, I was kind of a young leader. And I didn't have a lot of experience in developing people, but I've had an amazing amount of experience in the meantime. And so when I just wanted to write a much better, more mature book on how do you develop leaders, because I'm passionate about this. Because when people walk to me and they're in a leadership position or they're a leader, and they say, Clay, they say to me, John, I want to, I really want to become a great leader or a better leader. What do I do? And I tell them that you become a better leader by developing better leaders. And, there's a self-development part of my leadership, which is very essential. But, and that adds, there's an addition there. But when you really develop other leaders and you develop better leaders, there's a multiplying, compounding, ridiculous return from that. So I'm very excited about the book. And I'm very excited about the book because there's a lot of leadership books out, but you won't find very many leadership books that talk about developing other leaders. Most leaders, Clay, don't develop other leaders. They just develop themselves, and then they have followers. They've got a lot of followers. And that's good. Nothing wrong with that. But there's no multiplication with followers. There might be some addition, but there's no compounding. But the moment that you start really working and developing intentionally other leaders, then everything begins to compound. So I'm very excited about the book because of that.
One of my clients, Pastor Brian Gibson, is a big fan of yours. He has 4 campuses. His church is called His Church. He has 4 campuses.
Yeah.
And I know he has a ton of leadership questions for you. He has thousands of members. But one question that I would ask on behalf of Brian and all the pastors out there listening and all the business leaders is, where do most people get it wrong when it comes to attracting and developing and multiplying leaders as opposed to followers?
Well, where they miss it is, there are a couple things that they miss. And first of all, Clark, there are some leaders that they don't want other leaders around them. There are some leaders that they don't want other leaders around them. There are some leaders that they don't want other leaders around them. They're insecure, and they're maybe a little bit threatened by other people who maybe have a better idea. And so there's a certain amount of leaders who just want followers. That's one. Number 2 is we miss it in the fact that developing leaders is not easy. If you yourself are a pretty good leader, attracting followers is very easy. You can do that very quickly. But there's a difference between attracting followers and developing leaders, because followers, they're just looking for somebody that has a vision and they want to get on that leadership train and take the trip. But you start developing leaders. I've often said, leading leaders is like herding cats. I mean, it's just not an easy thing to do.
Right.
And it's they don't fall in line. They don't get up every day and say, "What do you have for me today?" They've got their own ideas and they're doing their own thing. And so many leaders don't develop leaders because it's much more difficult. It takes more time, takes more energy, and you've got to be a pretty good leader for another leader to follow you or to be developed by you, because they're not going to do that if you're not a good leader yourself. Like begets like. The law of magnetism in my book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, just says we attract who we are, not who we want. So for me to develop other leaders, I have to be a good leader myself, and then I have to put up with the uphill issues of developing leaders, because it's not easy. But my friend Art Williams, who started Primerica, I love it when he would develop his leaders, and he built that incredible company. He would tell his leaders, he'd say, "I'm not telling you this is going to be easy, but I am telling you it's going to be worthwhile." There we go. Now, and that's what this book's all about, Clay.
Chapter 1 of your book, you write about identifying leaders. Find them so you can develop them. What can readers expect to find in this chapter, and where do people get it wrong when it comes to identifying leaders so that they can develop them?
Well, it's in the area of awareness of what a leader looks like, Clay. Because I have people all the time that say, we'd like to, raise up a bunch of leaders in our organization, or we need to recruit some leaders. And the question I always ask them is, well, I love that. I said, do you know what a leader looks like? 90% of the time, they want leaders, but they have never had a clear picture of what a leader looks like. And so in the book, I talk about you've got to have a clear picture. If you don't know who you're looking for, you don't know if you're going to find them. And it's kind of like when I go to the airport and people don't know who I am, so they have some chauffeur to pick me up, and so that person's in baggage claim, and they're just standing there by the bags, and they've got their hand and arm in the air, and they got it on the end of their hand, they got my name. And I get off the plane, get through security, go down to the baggage area, I look for hands in the air, and I see my name, I go up and say, "Hey, I'm John Maxwell." And I love, they'll look at me, and they say this whole time, they'll say, oh, I found you. They'll say, "I found you." And I want to say, you didn't find me at all. I found you. All you did is stick my name in the air and hope. I could have walked right by you, and you would have never known that you missed me because you didn't know what I looked like.
For all the chauffeurs out there, I just want to put this out here. Just look for a beautiful man. Just look for a beautiful man, and you'll find John Maxwell. Just look for a beautiful man. There he is. Okay, back to you, sir.
Look for an old man with a smile, and you'll have it. But Clay, they didn't find me. They just put my name up there, and honestly, they hoped. They hoped I would find them. And hope's not a strategy. But I have other people, they pick me up, and they either have a book with my picture in it, or they get and they're so they're looking for, they know what I look like, and so all of a sudden they say, "Hey, you're John Maxwell." "Hi, I am." "Wow, how'd you know me?" "Well, I got your picture here." Well, they found me because they knew what I looked like. In chapter 1, I talk about what does a leader look like, and I talk about awareness, and I talk about 6 A's there that you kind of look for that just helps you know what a leader looks like. So chapter 1 is all about helping the reader know what a leader looks like, so they know who to go get.
For a guy like Pastor Brian Gibson, and I want to harp on this because his church is exploding. I mean, it is growing. His church, they have a campus in Amarillo, one in Owensboro, 2 other locations. I mean, they are just growing on a very practical level, and maybe even on a daily schedule level. I know you're a big fan of having a calendar and a very intentional agenda. How does a guy like Pastor Brian go about developing leaders? Should he have like a weekly class? Is it a monthly class? Is it a daily thing? How can he develop leaders?
Well, he first of all doesn't try to develop leaders. He develops a leadership culture. He creates an environment as a leader that is conducive for people to learn leadership, practice leadership. That's also a kind of a magnet that attracts people who like to lead, and he sets that leadership culture up. And a leadership culture. Wow, it's kind of like Chick-fil-A, who has done such an incredible, outstanding job developing a leadership culture. A leadership culture is a place where people really can find leadership development conducive. Mark Miller, who's a key executive at Chick-fil-A, is a good friend of mine. He literally says their slogan at Chick-fil-A is "Leaders Made Here," and how does that happen? This is a fast food restaurant. How does that happen? Well, you develop a leadership culture by letting people. I talk about this in chapter 3 a little bit about inviting them to the leadership table and allowing them to come and be a part of an environment of leaders. And you develop leaders and develop a leadership culture by letting them practice leadership. So leadership is it's not learned in a classroom. I mean, although you can learn characteristics of a leader, but leaders leaders become leaders because they get to practice leadership and they get. So there's a leadership culture is a place where you take people and give them a chance to lead. And say, okay, here's your responsibility, and I just empower you. Go for it, and you help them. You really just help them engage in practicing leadership, of which they learn what's good, what's not good. Let me give you an example of that. We have a nonprofit organization, Equip. Well, I have two nonprofit organizations, John Maxwell Leadership Foundation and Equip, that does transformation of countries. We're invited by the presidents of countries to come in and teach values to the country to help bring positive change. And so we're in 3 countries now. We're getting ready to go into 2 more countries, and we have 22, literally 22 presidents of countries.
Wow.
Who have sent us letters. I mean, that we're on they're on the waiting list, and we have a very effective process of knowing how to bring positive change in the community, and we start by getting permission from the top of the 8 streams of influence: president or government, and then business, education, media, arts, religion, health, and sports. And we get buy-in from them that they'll let us come in and do these leadership roundtables. And we have millions of people in these roundtables now. And it's an amazing story, but I don't want to get sidetracked. I'm talking about this, how to develop a leadership culture.
Yeah.
So one of the things we do is we have junior high curriculum for kids on 3 years of curriculum for 7th, 8th, and 9th on values. And the whole thesis is when a person learns good values and then they begin to live them out, they become more valuable. They become more valuable to themselves. They become more valuable to the family. They become more valuable to their community. Their whole value increases because they're learning and living out good values. And so we do them in roundtables, and so we do them in classrooms. Again, around tables of 6 to 8, but the kids lead and facilitate the round tables, not the teacher. And so what's happening is these kids in school, and this is not before or after school. This is in the regular curriculum of a class. They're practicing leadership, and all of a sudden teachers are just seeing kids. Some kids are popping up and they're saying, "Wow, this child has some leadership potential." Well, how did they discover that? They let them practice leadership. And so when anybody comes and says, "I want to have a leadership culture," you've got to do 2 things. You've got to let them practice leadership, and then again, you have to equip them. Chris Hodges is a very close friend of mine and has Church at the Highlands and has a enormous church. I think it's the 2nd largest church in America. I think they average about 55,000, 60,000 a Sunday. And they have many campuses. You're talking about Brian having 4. Well, he has maybe 15.
Wow.
And what they do is at each campus, it's another chance for them to put people in leadership positions to practice leadership. And he said, "John, we found 2 things. If we let them practice leadership and then we speak leadership into them, as far as we see these things happening to you as a leader," he said, we just find that they're just raising up, and we're raising up hundreds of leaders. So you've got to develop a leadership culture. And leadership culture is where there's a bias towards leadership and everybody gets to practice it.
And when you say practice, would you advise maybe to let somebody lead maybe the youth group service, or to lead like a home fellowship group, or what's a practical way to?
Yes, all of it. What I tell a person, whatever you're doing has leadership potential. And leadership is the ability to influence people. So let's look at your job and ask ourselves a simple question: how can you do your job well? And while you're doing your job well, how can you influence people in a positive way? And one of the ways we help people say, we want to empower you to make decisions. So you've got a receptionist out there, but we say, okay, yes, you have a job of kind of directing traffic in this company and in and out of the lobby. Yes, that's your job. But now let's talk about how can we help you to lead well in this job. And what I do is I let them have the job for a few months, and then we come around and we say, okay, talk to me. What doesn't work here? What do you love about your job? What's not working? What frustrates you at this front desk here? And they'll tell you what frustrates them. And almost everything that frustrates them is because they haven't been empowered to be a leader. And they may say, well, I've got a person waiting in the lobby sometimes for 30 minutes, and I'm kind of embarrassed about that. And so we say, well, we're going to empower you to do some leadership with them. Go over there and serve them, ask them, can I get you a cup of coffee? And we just empower them to make decisions on the job, which positively influence people, which is practicing leadership. And every job has that. And the problem is, too many times we look at our job as a job and don't see beyond the things that we're required to do. And in fact, I had in the book, in this book, there's so many practical things I have in The Leader's Greatest Return. But one of the things I teach is the fact that in our companies, I have 7 of them, but in our companies, we teach our people when we give them a job, we say, now, we want you to do your job with excellence, but we really want you to work yourself out of this job. When we give them a job, we say, now, we want you to do your job with excellence, but we really want you to work yourself out of this job. When we give them a job, we say, now, we want you to do your job with excellence, but we really want you to work yourself out of this job. So you do excellent, but while you're doing excellent, go start developing people to do your job and find somebody of that group that you develop that can do this job really good. And when you can develop somebody to do your job, you come and see us, and if we agree with you, we'll give you another job. And the saying has been, work yourself out of a job and I'll give you another one. But if you can't work yourself out of the job you have, I'll take it away from you. And that just develops a huge leadership culture. Mark Cole, who runs all of my 7 companies, has had 9 different jobs.
9.
He started in the stockroom, but he worked himself out of a job, and practiced leadership, and he practiced leadership all the way to the top.
Now, John, I want to ask you this next question with the subtlety that only a megaphone can provide. You've written 84 books. I repeat, you've written 84 books, and you own 7 companies. How do you create the time needed to write your books? What is your process for writing the books? Because there's so many business leaders that say,
I can't find the time to do it. I'm just overwhelmed. I can't find the time to write my book.
How do you find the time to write 84 books while running 7 companies?
You've written 84 books.
Yeah. I have.
Wow. Okay. Back to you, sir.
Which is nothing except it proves you're old. I mean, you can't write that many books if you're young. It takes a while. So it just means I'm an old man. But it also, when you ask how do I do that, I'm very intentional, and every day I do 5 things. Every day I read, every day I think, every day I file, every day I ask questions, and every day I write. I'm very intentional, and every day I do 5 things. Every day I read, every day I think, every day I file, every day I ask questions, and every day I write. And those the reading, the thinking, the filing, the asking questions are all resources for me to write books. So every day I read, and then I take what I read that's good and I file it so that I don't lose it, and then I think about what I file, and I say, okay, how can this help people? And sometimes I immediately know what the answer is, and so I put it in somewhere where it's a potential book somewhere down the road, and then I ask questions continually, because whatever I'm writing on, whatever book I'm writing on, I ask questions on that subject. So when I was writing The Leader's Greatest Return, when I was with the leader, I'd say, now talk to me how you develop leaders. What do you do? And I just ask questions, and I get more answers and get more enlightenment and become more aware. But then the key is every day I write. And somebody says, well, what do you mean by every day you write? What I mean is every day I write. I don't
where
ever
do you
miss
write?
a day.
Where do you write, and what time of the day do you write?
Well, I write everywhere, because every day I write and I travel. So I write in hotel rooms, and I don't even use a computer. I just use a legal pad and a 4-color pen, and I prefer. I don't always get to do this, but my preference is writing in the morning. I'm a morning person, so 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the morning, sometime there I'm up, and 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the morning, sometime there I'm up, and 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the morning, sometime there I'm up, and I get in some good writing. Nobody wants to talk to me at 4:30 in the morning.
Yes. Well, real quick, I love this, John, because I've interviewed so many super successful people, and all of you guys are up before 5 a.m. Can you help somebody out there who says, John, I want to be successful. I'm just not a morning person. What would you say to them?
Well, I tell them that they can be successful and not be a morning person, but they increase the odds of not doing that well. Because first of all, if you're a night person, then if you're a writer, write between midnight and 3 in the morning. I don't care. Nobody wants you at that time either. But you gotta ask yourself what am I? Which I happen to be a morning person. But here's the key. The fastest person doesn't win the race. I was with Gail Devers having dinner one night, and of course she was a big Olympic champion, won medals in 3 different Olympics, and probably a female track star in America, probably the #1 athlete in Olympic history. So at the end of the meal, I said, Gail, I've been thinking throughout the dinner. I think if you and I ran a 100-yard race, I could win. And she looked at me and said, "You're kidding." I said, "No, I'm not kidding. No, I think I could win." And she was with her husband. She said, "Did you hear him?" And, "Yeah, I heard that. Anyway, I got her competitive juices going. She's about ready to take her high heels off in that restaurant and go take me out in front of it. We're going to run a block. I mean, she was ready to let me eat dust. And I got her right to the tipping point. And I said, Gail, listen to me carefully, because I have thought about this. If you and I had a 100-yard race, I said, I think I could win if you gave me an 80-yard head start. And she started laughing. And she said, well, of course, if I gave you an 80-yard head start, you could win the race. And by the way, Clark, I wanted to say 70 yards, but I wasn't sure I could win with 70 yards. But at 80 yards, this fat boy could get across the line first. I knew that. And here's the whole point. This is what I want your listeners to catch today. It's very simple.
Yeah. The
fastest person doesn't win the race. It's the one who gets started first. Always.
That's good. You mentioned that you write your books methodically using a pen and a pad. You're using a pen and a pad. Is that the technology you're using to write your books typically?
Yeah, it's just a legal pad and a 4-color pen, black, blue, red, and green ink. And each color means something different. And yeah, I just, when I finish a book, I've got, 240 legal pages written. And that's how I do it.
How many times?
I love.
How many times do you typically edit a book before it's ready to go? I mean, how many times does it go back between you and an editor before it's ready to ship?
Twice.
Twice.
Just twice. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You are blowing my mind. My mind might explode. I love this. I love this.
Well. First of all, I've done it a long time, and pretty well. I don't give them a product until it's already pretty good and done. And I've got a team. I've got a team of 3 people that help me with the book. And I mean, it's different eyes looking at the book and different input. And so it's not just me. And if the 4 of us can't get a manuscript pretty well done for the publisher that is pretty good, then we're in the wrong business probably.
Well, John, we have so many of our listeners that love your books, and one of our listeners who really loves your books, his name is Corey Minter, Minter, and he owns a company called Trinity Employment Specialists. These guys do staffing for hospitals, so hospitals needing doctors and really high level professional staffing. And so Corey wanted to ask you a few questions on today's show. So Corey, meet John Maxwell.
Mr. Maxwell, it's great to meet you. I can't believe I'm talking to you right now, actually.
It's my privilege, Corey. Nice to meet you, friend.
I think I'm the one that's privileged. I want to jump into this real quick because we only have so much time. I love asking really great leaders this one question: what are your limits? And so that's such a big, deep question, but for this show, how do you set your limits, specifically with your schedule?
Well, first of all, Corey, probably I'm going to disappoint you. I have a lot of limits. I think the first thing that a leader needs to do is be very aware very aware of what I'm very aware of what I do well, and I'm very aware of what I don't do well. And basically, I do three things really well. I lead well, I create well, and I speak and communicate well. Those are the three things I do well. So I do those three things, Corey, period.
All right.
And people say, well, what do you mean you just do those three things? What I mean is I just do those three things.
Very simple.
Everything else is done by people that are just better than I am. And they come around me. The people around me complete me. The people around me compliment me. The people around me allow me to stay in my strength zone so that I can be productive. And I'm incredibly grateful for those people. I mean, my executive assistant, Linda's been with me for 32 years. Mark Cole, who runs everything with me, has been with me for 20 years. My Charlie Wetzel, the lead guy on my writing team, has been with me for 24 years. They just really make up all the difference, and so I allow them to. I don't try to control. I just basically say, you do this better than me, so you do this, and then we come together and we just add value to one another, and I just stay in that sweet spot. And so when people ask me, again, how can you write that many books? Well, it's very simple. I do it every day. Well, why do I do it? Why can I do it? How can I do it every day? I don't have 17 things to do.
Right. That's why.
I do three things, and I do them well, and then I bring everybody else around me, and they do the rest, and then I point to them, and I give them the credit because they're the ones that deserve the credit. So, what great leaders take the vision or the work from me to we. And so I don't have any me work. I have we work. Everything that you see that I do is a result of a lot of people who care for me and are very competent, that just allow me to be good. And it's that really, Corey. It's that simple.
John, I want to ask you this because I've heard you say that we all have uphill hopes and downhill habits.
Yeah, habits.
What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is that I start to say everybody, most people have hopes for their life and dreams for their life, and and all those dreams and hopes, whatever they are, they're all uphill. It's not easy. It doesn't happen fast. If success were easy, everybody'd be successful. And so it's all uphill. All the good stuff, everything worthwhile, it's uphill. There's nothing worthwhile. I mean, if you have a good marriage, it's because you worked at it. I mean, marriage is difficult. I mean, building a business is difficult. It's all difficult. There's nothing easy about it. I don't understand anybody thinking, well, it's easy. It's easy to make a lot of money. Well, if it is, then everybody'd have a lot of money. If it's easy to have a great marriage, then people would be married. I mean, for 50 years, and it's not easy. So it's all a struggle. And by the way, to go uphill, Clark, you have to be intentional.
Right.
You don't no one ever accidentally climbed a hill. I mean, nobody ever got to the top of the hill and then looked at their friends and said, now, my gosh, how did we get here?
Now
it's intentional.
You are very intentional. You've worked uphill to write this new book, The Leader's Greatest Return. And in chapter 2 of this book that you worked tirelessly on to create, you talk about attracting leaders and inviting them to the leadership table. What does the process of attracting leaders look like, and where do you see people getting it wrong?
Well, I think where people get it wrong is that I think leaders stay too isolated. And there's something beautiful about a table. I mean, I love a table. And I could go on for a long time lecturing just on the beauty of a table, whether it's a table where you sit down and have a meal together with friends, or whether it's a table where you sit down and think of ways to improve people's lives, have a creative table. But there's a leadership table, and that's where you invite people to sit down and talk to other leaders and discuss the subject of leadership and ask questions. And I think it's a very engaging term. And in this chapter, I talk about everybody needs to create a leadership table. And it's just a place literally where potential leaders, they're not there yet, but potential leaders can sit close to better leaders. And while they sit there, they can learn from them, they can listen, they can participate, they can ask questions. And so I just think it's very important in a leadership culture to not exclude anyone, just, let them sit at the table. Now, once they start practicing leadership, they begin to set themselves apart as far as who are what you might call your A-list leaders and your B-list leaders, maybe even your C-list leaders. But they begin to set themselves apart. But they don't set themselves apart until they get to practice leadership. And I say the first step of practicing leadership is let them get into a leadership environment where they hear leadership discussions, because what happens is people grow into the conversation that you have around them. And so if I'm around conversations where leaders are talking about solving problems and creating solutions, after a while I'm going to think about solving problems and creating solutions. And so it's that environment. And I love this second chapter of the book because I've never read anybody else talk about it, but it's just a very simple, practical idea of to have a table, and you get somebody new on your team, say, hey, sit for a couple months at our leadership table and let them hear the questions and let them participate, and very soon you'll see the ones who kind of lean in toward leadership, and you'll see the ones who kind of lean back and lean away from it.
True.
They're not anti. It just doesn't attract them, and so you begin to visually see who your potential leaders are going to be, and then that's when you begin to invest time in those potential leaders to get your return.
Well, John, we've got a kind of a virtual leadership table here, and Corey has another question for you. He's just a huge fan of yours. And Corey, just feel free to see if you can paint John Maxwell, the leadership guru, into a leadership corner. See if he can fight his way out of it with his ninja leadership skills.
Oh, I'm going to try. Thank you, Clay. At this point in your life, John, who do you most want to help do what?
Just Cubans or Americans, or who do you think?
Well, first of all, my mantra is that I add value to leaders who multiply value to others. So everything I do has a bias and an intention toward developing leaders. So, Corey, I have a nonprofit organization that for 19 years just trained leaders around the world, and we were pretty successful. We trained 6 million leaders in every country of the world and became the largest leadership training company in the world.
It's amazing.
And when we finished that, we went back to the table and said, okay, let's help these leaders know how to lead now, so they know leadership skills and leadership principles. Let's help them become transformational and bring positive change into people's lives, which is beyond just knowing how to lead. So we now are focused on transformation in countries. We started 7 years ago in Guatemala as our first country. We only come into the country when the president of the country invites us in. And we're now in 3 countries. We're going to go into 2 more this year. And we have 22 presidents and prime ministers of countries that have invited us by letter in to come in and do leadership transformation. And so we do that through small groups, through what we call transformation tables, group of 6 or 8. And over the course of time, they discuss 16 different values. And what we've discovered is when people learn good values and they live them, it begins to make them more valuable, makes them more valuable to themselves, makes them more valuable to their family, to their community. And so we're doing country transformation, and then next year I'm going to launch community transformation in America. And I have a coaching company that has 30,000 coaches. It's the largest coaching company in the world in 162 countries. And we add, we add 150 new coaches every week.
Wow.
Wow.
And so it's amazing. If any of your listeners want to know more about it, just tell them to go to johnmaxwell.com and look at we have it's called the John Maxwell team. But I'm mobilizing those people that, Jack Welch and I had a conversation several years ago in which we were talking about legacy, and he and I came to the same agreement that legacy is not in a company or an organization, it's in people. You continue your legacy through people. And so I literally started the John Maxwell team, which is our coaching company, to literally to develop a legacy of leadership and values. And so we're going to start community transformation next year in America, and we're going to mobilize those coaches to be catalytic in their communities to bring about transformation. We've got curriculum of roundtables for adults. We have leadership curriculum for junior high kids. We've got over 1.5 million kids going through our curriculum in high school or in junior high right now, and it's values. It's about values, and so that's my passion, Corey. That's if there's one thing I'm putting my time in is transformation of countries, and then I want to bring it back to America, because the answer is not going to happen in government or in D.C. It's going to happen when people take their own communities back and say, I'm going to make a difference right here where I am with people that I already know. And so it's very exciting, Corey. And good night. As much as you read and hear my stuff, you need to become one of my coaches. You need to quit fooling around.
Oh man,
I need to get busy, right?
No, John, I want to ask.
That's right.
I want to ask this real quick. On the you talk a lot about the power of intentional living. I've heard you talk about it, write about it. You've definitely talked about it. And what happens that I find as a consultant for people, I work with a lot of churches and business owners, is a business owner says, you know what, I'm going to be intentional. The pastor says, you know what, I'm going to be intentional. And then they get to work at, let's say, 7 a.m. They're bombarded with 13 hours a week of emails on average. They're bombarded by got-a-minute meetings. They're bombarded by everyone's got a different opinion. What advice would you have for the pastors out there who have a church of 1,000+ members and they've become reactive? They used to be proactive. Now they're very reactive. Because you come from the ministry world, what advice would you have specifically for the pastors out there about being intentional about their church after they grow over 1,000 members, that it can become easy to become reactive by default?
Well, it's a great question, Clark, and the answer is that you have to be intentional in your priorities. Just living an intentional life, I can intentionally go do errands every day and say, I know what I'm doing. I'm doing errands intentionally, but there may be no return there. So this is going to be very helpful. When I went to San Diego and I, for 14 years, I pastored a large church. In fact, it was written up as one of the 10 most influential churches in America. And I sat down with the search committee before I ever became the lead pastor there. And they asked me questions for 3 hours. And I answered their questions. And finally, they said, we're done. Do you have any questions? I said, well, I just have one. I said, we've covered most of the stuff. But I said, this is a very important question, and it may take us a while to answer it tonight, but I got to have an answer. I said, if I become the lead pastor of this church, what do I have to do that no one else can do except me? That's the question. Wow. Now, this is a huge question. This will change everybody's. All of your listeners, I don't care what business, whatever you're doing, this question changed your life. And of course, in the beginning, they gave me a whole bunch of stuff that I had to do, and I followed the founding pastor. So everybody knows anything about a founder. Founders do everything, and I knew I couldn't build. That the church had stagnated for a dozen years, and I knew the problem. The problem was that they weren't intentional in their priorities enough, and so that became a 2-hour discussion, Clark. And when we finished. Basically, they said I had to be responsible for the health of the church. That's fair. They said I had to be the primary communicator on the weekends. That's fair. They said I had to obviously be responsible to live a good life, a good moral life, etc. That only I can do that. That's fair. And then they said I needed to be responsible to develop the staff, and that's fair. And that's the only 4 things I had to do that I couldn't delegate: equip, empower someone else to do. So now that's on my list. That's my list.
Got it.
Maxwell has to do those every day, be intentional with them. Everything else is not on my list. Everything else, I'm going to find people, equip them, develop them as leaders, and they're going to have it. It's going to be theirs. And so I spent the first 18 months getting all those other things handled by other people, of which I didn't do any of it. And then I just stayed in my sweet spot of those 4 things. And I never had to be reactionary because I had everybody. You get reactionary when you don't have anybody else to carry the load except you, and that's a leadership issue. Hey, that's the reason I wrote the book, The Leader's Greatest Return. You've got to develop other leaders to help you carry that load.
John, a smartphone can make people dumb. Again, a smartphone can make people dumb. According to Nielsen Media, the average person is now interrupted by or interacting with their smartphone 11 hours per day, which to me seems just crazy. 11 hours per day. What would you say to a business owner out there or a leader of some kind who has found themselves surgically attached to the smartphone, which is interrupting them constantly? What would you say to that business owner who's trying to lead a staff meeting but can't stop looking at their phone and all the emails coming in, all the interruptions? What would you say to them?
I would tell them that they don't prioritize well, and they're very discourteous to the people that they're trying to give their attention to.
What would you say to that business owner who's trying to lead a staff meeting but can't stop looking at their phone and all the emails coming in, all the interruptions? What would you say to them? I would tell
them that they don't prioritize well, and they're very discourteous to the people that they're trying to give their attention to.
What would you say to that business owner who's trying to lead a staff meeting but can't stop looking at their phone and all the emails coming in, all the interruptions? What would you say to them?
I would tell them that they don't prioritize well, and they're very discourteous to the people that they're trying to give their attention to. And I mean, this isn't a complicated question. Every distraction keeps a person from having traction. Traction is to pull in for a cause, and distraction is to pull away from the cause. And so, I have no idea why people would do that, except the fact that they're discourteous to other people that they're with. I mean, when I see people, they're trying to talk to me and they're looking at their phone a dozen times. After a while, I look up and say, "No, let me just maybe we need to shorten the conversation up. Do you want to talk to the phone, or do you want to talk to me? But let's make a decision. It's okay. If you want to talk to the phone, I got other things to go do."
That's powerful.
But it's ridiculous. So I want to say it's stupidity, but it's probably just discourteous. And so when people have their phone attached to their, I've got an iPhone, and I got people wanting me. When you have 7 companies, you probably have enough people like to have your attention for something, and so you got to say, for the next 3 hours, I don't even have my phone with me.
It's powerful.
I don't, it's not complicated. It's very easy to do. I always tell people they get distracted because they've never gotten enough traction on what they really want to accomplish in life. When you know what you want to accomplish in life, you really don't care about that other stuff.
True. That is powerful. You are just full of knowledge bombs. I want to respect your time, and we have a chance here for 90 seconds and 2 final questions. Corey, you got one more question for John Maxwell.
Thanks, Clay.
This is a Corey show today.
Oh, man.
Oh, he's a huge fan.
Hey, and thank you, Clay. I really appreciate it.
Corey, you need to be a coach. Go to johnmaxwell.com.
I'm gonna zoom my internet there as soon as this show is over, John.
Hey, if you were a coach, I'd certify you, and you'd get all these questions answered a lot quicker than being on Clark's show. Go ahead.
I'm on there.
I'm having fun.
I love it. You have moved over into the business world, but you're a man of faith. What is the best advice that you would like to share with other businessmen who are also very strong in their faith, but they don't work, but they work in a secular world?
Well, I love that question. I would honestly wish I had an hour to discuss it with you, Corey, because it's the world that I live in, and it's the world that I love. And I would say three things quickly. One is you unconditionally love people, period. Yes. End of story. And somebody said, well, what does it mean to unconditionally love somebody? It means that you don't put any conditions of love on them. You love them, who they are, as they are, where they are. Period. Discussion's over. That's the first thing. Because you can never be salt and light into a secular community if you're drawing lines and judging and trying to fix people. Christians love to fix people. I don't know, last time I knew Jesus saved, but anyway, they're trying to fix people. So unconditionally love people, that's number one. Number two, become excellent in your field of business. In other words, with fellow believers, the relationship we have through Christ pulls us together. That's not true in the business community. Right. What you don't get a relationship first, you get respect first, and then you get the relationship. And you get respect from being able to help people and provide and meet needs and being excellent in exceeding expectations. So unconditionally love people, get respect through exceeding expectations, and number three, intentionally add value to them every day. And this is what connects you relationally to people when they wake up one day and say, John is just, he's an asset to me. He's an asset to me. He's constantly helping me and making a difference in my life. And that's the relational connection you get that hopefully in the right time, in the right place, you have an opportunity to share faith with them. But those three things are essential.
John Maxwell, I appreciate you so much for taking time out of your schedule to invest in the lives of our 500,000 listeners. It's just been an honor for John Maxwell Part 2. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Clark. Have a great day, and blessings to all your listeners.
And if you're out there today and you've learned something, I encourage you to buy The Leader's Greatest Return. Maybe you need to not buy a regrettable burrito today at your local convenience store. Maybe you need to fast for one day in a row. Save the $20. Buy the book, The Leader's Greatest Return. I'm not going to say, John, people out there are being cheap if they don't buy the book, but I would just say, some would suggest I should say that you're being cheap if you don't buy The Leader's Greatest Return. What an incredible book. Pick it up right now. John, you take care, my friend.
Thank you, Clark. Blessings. Happy New Year.
Thrive Nation, that was the GOAT of leadership development, the number one, the greatest of all time in the field of leadership development, John Maxwell. A lot of times people get fired up about what somebody says, and then they want to get they want to get a tattoo of their favorite Bible verse or their favorite quote. I want to embroider those knowledge bombs on my forehead. The stuff he just taught was awesome. I mean, he talks about how as a leader, you've got to turn your smartphone off in your staff meetings, or you're being discourteous or poor at your prioritizing. I mean, he talked about turning your phone off in the meetings. He talked about how to develop leaders. He just explained to you that he gets up at 4 a.m. to write his books. He just explained to you every day he does 5 things every single day. This show was hot. However, it was Napoleon Hill that once said that action is the real measure of intelligence. Again, action is the real measure of intelligence. So don't be just a hearer of this show, because Thomas Edison once said that vision without execution is hallucination. Remember, action is the real measure of intelligence, according to Napoleon Hill, and vision without execution is hallucination, according to Thomas Edison. So let's not hallucinate. Let's not be unintelligent. Let's go out there and implement what we've learned. Let's be both hearers of these words and doers of these words. And I encourage you to take notes today, put it into your calendar. What gets scheduled gets done. You can absolutely live an incredible, epic, super successful life, or you can just be the guy who knows a little bit about everything, but who never actually implements anything. Let's go out there and be hearers and doers. Share this show with a friend. And now, without any further ado, let's end this show with a big Thrive Time boom. A big boom. Because boom stands for big, overwhelming, optimistic momentum. It's big, overwhelming, optimistic momentum. And now without any further ado, here we go. 3, 2, 1, boom!
Frick! What time is it? Where are my pants? Just turn. Oh yes, it's time to rise and grind. Oh yes, before the rooster crows. Oh yes, it's time to rise and grind. Oh yes. I wake up at 3 to get it all done. Got money on my mind and my wife's number one. Kinda cultural cause I am a Christian. In it for the long game or nothing. Get rich quick, nah, I don't do it. But if you got a real goal, I'll help you pursue it. Like Robbie Schneider, I'll be saying you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. Have to seize the day, carpe diem, son. If you ever wanna make them Benjamins. Success requires self-discipline. Self-discipline? Self-discipline. I just said it 3 times in a row. Cause if you're looking for a real hero, you gotta look into me and my bro. Will you be a victim or a victor? I think we're missing it all. How bizarre. The resources you need aren't very far. You gotta get 3 jobs like I once did. Target, Applebee's, and DirecTV. Which meant I never watched TV. Cause I was on my grind like a 2-3. Or like that 12 to the TP. Do you feel, man? Like a petting zoo. Stick to your goals like glue. Like 80 hours per week pursue. And I am so to the serious. Because I ain't smoking delirious. I'm aware of cause and effect. And I know that your life could be wrecked. Or your life could be good and great. So what will you do today? Will you fill the schedule with nothingness? Or the middle with somethingness? While you're waiting for Santa and an elf, this just in, you could be helping yourself. Say no to the handouts, cause they hurt your pride. When you could be out working the other guy. What? When you could be out working the other guy. Who? When you could be out working the other guy. Yes. Oh yes. It's time to rise and grind. Oh yes. Before the rooster crows. Oh yes. It's time to rise and grind. Oh yes. Everybody singing now. Oh yes. Oh yes. It's time to rise and grind. Oh yes. Before the rooster crows. Oh yes. It's time to rise and grind. Oh yes. Verse 2 is short and life is 2. We better get started cause there's no redo. 38, ain't it great? I'm half dead, dude. I'm half dead, dude. Well, hell's bells. I'm gonna go take a nap. Whoa.